Now let's take up formation of the new government. How did things go on? Lord Mountbatten, he was the first Governor General of Free India. India requested Lord Mountbatten, who was very friendly with India and Indian leaders, to continue for some more time as the Governor General of India. Because the new situation we should face, we should be able to settle things. If a seasoned officer is there, he was a retired naval lieutenant, a very shrewd person. So he continued as the first Governor General of India. Babu Rajendra Prasad, Jawaharlal Nehru. The new constitution came into being on the 26th of January 1950. 26th of January 1950. We regard that day as the Republic Day. Republic Day of India. India became a republic. And that day, Mountbatten withdraws and Babu Rajendra Prasad becomes the first president of India. With that, sovereignty is established. Absolutely, the rule is in the hands of the Indians. We became a sovereign power on the 26th of January 1950. The primary aspects then, India became a democratic country, a republic country, and as per the 42nd Amendment later on, we became a secular and a socialist country. These words were added to our preamble there onwards. In the beginning, India was a republic country, a democratic country, and a sovereign country. These were in the preamble to begin with. Later on, during Srimati Indira Gandhi's Prime Ministership, two more words were added to the preamble of the Constitution. On the first page of the Constitution itself, they figure. What were they? One is secular, the other is socialist. So they make even our vision very, very clear. We are a secular country. There is no state religion. All religions are equal. See, compare it with Pakistan. Their vision itself was very short. They did not want to give the right position to the Hindus at all. Hindus are regarded as second-class citizens in Pakistan. Whereas in India, all religions are equal. We want to serve them all. There is no state religion. So basically, even in the attitude, the mental set, these two countries differ from each other. Pakistan, to begin with, they never thought Hindus and Muslims are equal. Yes, they said and they did it, Pakistan is for Muslims. Hindus are second-class citizens there. Independent foreign policy, I told you, we had to develop an independent foreign policy for India. Jawaharlal Nehru did his job very well. We did not join any of the two power blocks of the country. We did not want to join the communist power bloc led by Russia. We did not join the imperialist bloc led by America. We stood in between. We had friendship with both. We played a key role in the world politics with Yugoslavia and Egypt. We were a trio. Egypt, Yugoslavia, India. All these three were neutral countries. Did not join any of the power blocks. And we were interested in maintaining peace. So from that angle, India played a vital role. And India has a parliamentary democracy today. Democracy can be in different forms. We chose to be a parliamentary democracy. What does it mean? We elect members to the parliament. The parliament elects the heads, that means the party which has the maximum number of seats in the parliament, either independently or by coalition, they will elect their leader. He becomes the Prime Minister of the country. And MPs of the Parliament and MLAs of the states, they vote and elect the President of India. So ours is a parliamentary form of democracy, and Parliament has the upper house, the Rajya Sabha, and the lower house, the Lok Sabha. Parliament is the ultimate authority in India. Parliament discusses all the various issues pertaining to the country and takes wise decisions from time to time. It is the Parliament, representatives elected by the people, who sit together and decide how should India develop further. What should be our future plan? All these are decided by the members whom we elect by way of election. They get together and they decide there, and that you call it as Parliament. It has an upper house, a house of elders, a lower house, a house of freshers, or those who are elected by people. They are younger, it is said like that, and there is no rule as such. No rule set. Rajya Sabha is elected indirectly, Lok Sabha is elected directly by the people. And both these houses have to agree to whatever decision that has to be taken up. They have their own methodology of attending each and every policy matter of the country. Now coming to the integration of the princely states, I told you the figure is 562. There were 562 princely states in India. 3 options were given to the princely states: joining India, or joining Pakistan, or remaining independent without joining any of these 2. Now India, by way of instrument of accession, we approached all the states. We did not want to do it by force. It should be with mutual understanding. So there was an instrument of accession. Every state should accede into the Federation of India. Papers need to be signed. And there will be some revenue sharing. Those princely states, princes who give up their states to the Federation of India, they get some honorarium every year. Every year they get some honorarium. Some fund is earmarked for them. So based on the actual revenue and royalty, they were paid a certain amount every year, but that got scrapped in 1971 by Srimati Indira Gandhi. They enjoyed till then this royalty. Special status was given to kings, some special status. They were not just poo-pooed like that. They were given some special status because they had ruled those territories for a long time. Now all of a sudden they have to give up power. They too have to get into a set of mind. So they were revered by the new government of the country. In 1971, that special status was also removed. So they had the special status during the first 2 decades, almost first 2 decades. Then it was withdrawn. Sardar Patel is called as Iron Man of India for the reason that he completed the job of accession in a most efficient way. He is very strong, iron-willed person. He decided and he went ahead with the entire accession job. First of all, we will take up Junagadh. I told you 3 places: Kashmir, Junagadh and Hyderabad. We will take up Junagadh. Junagadh is in Rajasthan. They had a Nawab. Junagadh had a Nawab. And that Nawab wanted to join Pakistan. So he decided and declared that Junagadh will go to Pakistan. because they had the freedom to select, no? He selected Pakistan. He signed an agreement with Pakistan. To join Pakistan, he signed an agreement with the government of Pakistan. But the citizens of Junagadh, they did not like the decision of the Nawab. They revolted. People there in Junagadh, they revolted against the Nawab. Ultimately, the situation reached such a level that the Nawab had to run away. He left his country, kingdom, and he ran away. And that was the great moment for the people of Junagadh. People had decided to join the Federation of India and they joined. The king fled. So, the people in Junagadh, mainly under the leadership of the Diwan there, they requested Indian forces to enter in. Indian government was requested to send the Indian forces to quell any revolt there. So Indian forces went inside and Junagadh became a part of India. Now that is Junagadh story. Now let us take Hyderabad. Hyderabad had a Nizam. It was said that he was the richest man in the world at that time. Richest man. A cruel person. He was not a kind Nizam, he was a cruel ruler. He refused to join India. See, Hyderabad is encircled by India on all the sides, and he says that he will remain an independent country, he will not join India. He puts a threat to the government of India that he would not like to become a part of India. But the farmers there in Hyderabad, they revolted. Farmers. They were fed up with the kind of governance that Nizam had given. Enough is enough. We have really suffered a lot under the Nizam. Now we would like to join the government of Federation of India. So farmers invited the central government to come and help them. Communists supported. Communists went against Nizam. Farmers and communists, they joined hands. A cruel army he had. That cruel army that Nizam had was known as Razakars. Razakars. They knew only bloodshed. That army of Nizam, they knew only bloodshed. Even certain parts of our Karnataka, northern parts of Karnataka, were under the Nizam then. That's why we call the northern part of Karnataka, certain districts, we call them as Hyderabad Karnataka, because it was under Hyderabad earlier. Razakars went on beheading people, torching houses, huts in villages, attacking them, creating a kind of terror in the villages that came in the precinct of Hyderabad. Razakars. People of Karnataka even, I tell you, not only Karnataka, other states are also there. They came into the open, they started fighting with the Razakars. Lot of innocent people died. If they have to save their family, save their kith and kin, they have to fight. They take sides and come out of the houses with whatever weapons we have. They were not prepared, they were not trained, but these Razakars are a trained group. They were not humane at all, they were all demons. Razakars were demons of the 20th century. You have to read about them, you have to read books on these aspects, stories. But ultimately, Indian government did its best to quell the riots, kill the Razakars. Lots of them surrendered even, they were put in jails. And ultimately, Nizam fled, like Junagadh's Nawab. Nizam fled, no one knows where he went, and Hyderabad surrendered. Hyderabad one of the biggest states in India. It was very big. It was a big property. It went into the hands of the Federation of India. It became a part of the Federation of India. Now let us come to Jammu and Kashmir, the third one. Hari Singh. Hari Singh was the king of Jammu and Kashmir. Hari Singh, a Hindu king. You can make out who was in large numbers there. Hari Singh was the head. Hindus were in majority. He wanted to remain independent. That's the mistake he did. He did not want to join India. He did not want to join Pakistan even. So what did he say? We will remain independent, he said. That was enough for Pakistan. Pakistan thought, why should I not attack Kashmir and take it over now? See the ill feeling in the minds of Pakistani rulers then. They were not happy with whatever they had got. They had got a chunk of Indian property in the west and a chunk of property in the east. East Pakistan and West Pakistan. They should have remained happy with whatever they had got. And that was not the period to fight like that. The Pakistani forces, mainly they were tribals. Fearing that Kashmir may join India, Pakistan said, I am attacking. Reason. Kashmir may join India, so I want to take a stance. I want to see that such a situation doesn't happen. So I am attacking. So they went on instigating the tribals all along, to attack, to raise a revolt against Hari Singh. Hari Singh and his military strength. What did India do? India was a bit slow here. We entered in. Hari Singh invited Indian government to take over when Pakistan attacked because he was weak to face Pakistani terrorists and army. So India complained to the United Nations. See, this is what is happening. Pakistan is trying to take over. And India sent our forces too, went in. There was fight everywhere. And ultimately, though Hari Singh agreed to join India, entire Kashmir did not come to our hand. Chunks of territory remained with Pakistan. Ceasefire was declared by United Nations. Ceasefire. Stop fighting. I will resolve. That resolution did not take place at all there onwards. Battle truce came into effect. What is truce? Some agreement. Everything will be quiet now. Everything will be decided. It will take some time. And POK got formed. Pakistan occupied Kashmir. Entire Kashmir did not come to our hands. And the Kashmir too remained under a separate, secluded policy in the Constitution of India. Article 370. And recently, last year, in the month of August, Indian government declared that Kashmir is a part of India. And our Indian Constitution will hold good for Jammu and Kashmir too. Now POK still remains with Pakistan. People in POK are crying. They have requested Indian government to take over. But Pakistan is there watching. They do not want to surrender POK to India. It has to be seen as to what would happen later. That's why that area is called as POK, Pakistan Occupied Kashmir. It's a part of Kashmir, but they have occupied and kept it under their control. Okay. Now a few other places, like Pondicherry. The French, though the British gave us freedom, the French did not want to give freedom to those colonies that were under them. For example, Pondicherry, Karaikal, Mahe, Chandranagar, these were all French colonies all along the eastern coast. and a small portion in Kerala too. They did not want to declare freedom, independence to the French colonies. There was discussion between the French and the Indian government continuously over all these aspects. There was pressure by the world community, pressure by the United Nations. So decolonization was taking place everywhere. No country can hold on to power on some other's land. Under force you can't keep somebody's land under you. Ultimately, in 19 Karaikal, Mahe and Chandranagar, they got integrated into Indian territory in 1954. 1954. That's 7 years after India got independence. And by 1963, Pondicherry became a part of India. Pondicherry to the French, they submitted, they agreed to give freedom and go. And Pondicherry became a part of India. Now the other territory that remained, very interesting, it was the Portuguese territory Goa. Portuguese territory Goa. Goa was under Portugal and Portugal had its own inhibition. Today or tomorrow Indian government will definitely try to take away Goa and they were not ready. Portugal was also a colonial power. Colonial power. Goa, Diu, Daman, 3 territories were there on the western coast of India. Of those, Goa was sufficiently a bigger chunk. Panaji was its capital. The Portuguese were asked to leave by India asked them to leave. See, France has surrendered. You to leave and go. Portuguese, instead of agreeing to the demand of the Indian government and surrendering Goa, they brought military, more and more military from Portugal. Vessels started moving in, weapons started coming, soldiers started coming. They were trying to fortify Goa against any attack by India. So the Portuguese were not ready to surrender. In between, there were a lot of satyagrahis within Goa. They went on the Gandhian way, sitting on satyagraha, fast unto death, trying to bring pressure on the government, civil disobedience movement. But the Portuguese were tougher than the British. They used to put them into jails, torture them. And even proselytization zeal was there. What's that? Hindus were being converted into Christianity by the Portuguese. They used to show some kind of help or the other, give them, and ultimately when they failed to give back, return back that money, they would ask him, we will forego everything, you become a Christian now. If he doesn't agree physically, he is carried to the church and he is shaved, he is given a Portuguese name and he is made to eat meat forcibly. Once he is taken that way to the church and the proselytization, he is made a Christian, he won't be accepted in his house. They'll say, don't enter the house. The traditional way of thinking. Once you have gone into their hold, we cannot take you back. Very orthodox. Goans were very orthodox. Hindus. So that was a gain for the government. They refused to take back. So, come, join Christianity now. He will marry within the Christian fold and he will be a Christian there afterwards. So lots of Goans today, if you go and study there, they were all Hindus earlier. They were converted, forcibly converted by the Portuguese. So Satyagrahi started coming from all parts of India, entering into Goa in support of the Goan revolutionaries, Goan volunteers. They joined themselves. We are with you. We are ready to suffer for you in the jails, Portuguese jails. For your mother India, you are struggling. So people had that urge in them to fight for their nation. Indian military entered into Goa and took possession. When situation became ripe and the volunteers and Satyagrahi said it is the right time you attack, Indian government decided. So in the 1960, Indian government attacked Goa and took it over. It was a question about 24 hours. Within 24 hours, Goa was taken. And most of the Portuguese officers, government heads, they all escaped either in ships or in military planes. In planes, they escaped from there without getting caught. And again, the coffers went empty. Money, gold, silver, valuables, everything they shifted to Portugal. But Goa became a part of the Indian Union. So Goa was a UT, Union Territory, till 1987. It was directly controlled by the Union Territory. Afterwards, after 1987, it became a state. Today it is an independent state in between Karnataka and Maharashtra on the sea coast, and it has all the powers of a state. Now coming to reorganization of states, on the demand of the people, the central government decided to divide India into states based on language. Linguistic reorganization of the states based on language. States can be formed from different angles. The base can be different, but the best one that the central government found was language. People speaking one language can come together and they too will be able to run their administration efficiently. The administration will be in their own language, and people too will have the freedom to learn their language and improve upon. National language will be there, but state languages also get protected. So demand of the people was for linguistic states. British never administered based on languages. They felt if we allow people to rule the country as per their languages, we become weak. What is it we are going to get? So then the lingua franca was English. Only after the British left, the local languages were given prominence. But still, there was a struggle for some time. Because even dividing India based on language was not easy. The border areas are there where both the languages would be spoken. See the borders of Karnataka where Telugu is spoken, Kannada is also spoken. Which way you will take it off? If you make it a part of Andhra Pradesh, Kannada speaking people get angry. If you make it a part of Karnataka, Telugu speaking people get angry. And this is not the case between Andhra Pradesh and Karnataka. It was there all over the country because all the states were formed based on languages. So everywhere, dividing the border line or drawing the line there, dividing line was a very tough job. Lots of lives were lost on that too. Lots of lives were lost. Reorganization of states based on languages, it sounds well, but it was not that easy as we speak of. Putti Sri Ramulu, a Congress volunteer from Andhra Pradesh, he sat on fast unto death. He said, I want Telugu speaking state to get formed. Central government was still calculating as to how to go about. It will cost a lot again. Any new decision being taken will cost a lot. Poor country. He sat on fast for 54 days continuously without any food. 54 days. On the 54th day, he collapsed and died. Putti Sri Ramulu. So far, the linguistic organization of states, reorganization of states was going at a low speed. Now, There was an uproar in Andhra Pradesh. Get us the state, get us the Telugu speaking state. We cannot wait further. Already one life is lost. Potti Sri Ramalu, a volunteer, has died. Immediately Andhra Pradesh was formed. Without fighting for the rest of the country, Andhra Pradesh got formed. That was in 1953. The first language-based state to get formed in India was Andhra Pradesh. Who was mainly responsible? Potti Sri Ramalu, who sacrificed himself for the purpose. Immediately, State Reorganization Commission was appointed. They started studying. It took another 3 years to study and divide and draw the lines where the states would be divided from one another. And all the papers were ready. And ultimately, on November 1st, 1956, the new list of reorganized states, their boundaries, map, new map, everything got published. We celebrate that day as Rajyotsava Day. November 1st, you all remember. Which is that year? 1956. Rajasthani speaking people, Rajasthan. Gujarati speaking people, Gujarat. Kannada speaking people, Karnataka. Tamil speaking people, Tamil Nadu. Here it was not named Karnataka, it was named as Mysore. Mysore. Karnataka name came up later. That was later on. In the beginning, our state was Mysore state. To Mysore state, some of the parts of other states were added to make it a little bigger. Because Kannada speaking places were there out of the realm of Mysore state, where Kannada was prevalent. Those two have to be added. Everything has to be done on the basis of language. Punjabis, it became Punjab. Kashmiris, became Kashmir. Bengalis, it became Bengal. Odisha speaking, it became Odisha. Biharis, Bihari language. See, all the states got formed all over India based on language. How many states? 14 states got formed. 14 states plus 6 union territories. Some they say Pondicherry. They did not want it to get added to Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu was known as Madras then. It became Tamil Nadu later. To begin with, it was Madras state. In Madras state, Tamil was the language. But in Pondicherry, French was the language. So people there were not ready to become a part of Madras. So Pondicherry was made a separate state, separate union territory. Goa became a separate union territory. That was after Goa became independent. So 6 union territories got formed, 14 states got formed. That was on the 1st of November 1956. Lot of efforts were made to bring all the chunks where Kannada was being spoken together into Karnataka state. 1956, it was Mysore state, I told you. Vishal Mysore state, Vishala Mysore. Not the previously known small state, Vishala Mysore. Previously known state was ruled by the Wadeyars. Jayachamrajendra Wadeyar was the last king of Mysore state. Now it is the government of India. These chunks, when they were added, it was called as, first of all, Vishala Mysore. Now it became Karnataka. It was named Karnataka in the year 1973. 1973, Devaraja's rule. At that time, it was nominated as Karnataka, Karunadu. Now, the same states are getting divided again and again. Quite a few divisions have taken place because population has gone up. Some of the states are too big to be controlled. Say, for example, Uttar Pradesh. There's a plan to trifurcate or cut it into 4 parts and make 4 independent states. As there is no problem now, the government is sitting idle on that. But a day it may happen. Andhra Pradesh, it became Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. It got divided. Maharashtra state, Maharashtra and Gujarat, it got divided. And Chhattisgarh and all in the central Indian part, there they got formed, Uttaranchal. So states may get divided again further depending on the necessity. This is all the the story of the post-independent India. To get all these set right, India had to struggle a lot. Thank you.